Bigates, bonjour, buenos dias. This is Greg. This is a response to Bob Lutz's comments regarding Tesla. There are 5 points I'd like to make about Bob Lutz and his comments. The first comment I'd like to make is that, as you may recall, Mr. Lutz, GM first built electric cars and then destroyed them all because California was trying to move towards emissions management. Let's go further backwards. One of the reasons California has some of the worst pollution problems is that Firestone and General Motors in the 40s got together and bought up the rail lines and ripped the rail lines in Los Angeles slash the greater LA County out of the ground to force more people to buy both cars and tires. So GM has a long reputation for generating arguments that serve their interests, but tend to screw the public. So let's address your latest comments regarding Elon Musk being a cult figure and that his whole concept of a car company does not work. Um, Item number one, you yourself admitted that the reason why GM currently has the Volt and the Bolt is that when Elon Musk came out with the original Roadster, GM took a look at that vehicle and realized that they needed to have a response should the electric market take off. And hence, that was the start of an effort by GM to come up with viable products to address customer demand in that space. So I find it strange that you're using Mr. Musk as a guide for making a move to work in an area, but don't want to give him any credit for the progress he's made. The second comment I'd like to make to you is for most car people and serious car people, there's an element of it that's all about performance. And I don't know if you've noticed, but when it comes to the Model S and its acceleration from 0 to 60, there is no car, regardless of price, that's street legal within General Motors that can keep up with the Model S. So my second point is, Mr. Lutz, you need to shut up and build a damn car that can compete with Tesla, and therefore you won't develop a cult following if General Motors can get its act together and deliver a product that can compete. The third point that comes up is Mr. Lutz referenced the fact that Tesla is burning through large amounts of cash, namely $250 million a month. Um, I don't know if you've noticed this, sir, but there's a concept in business that's called money is fungible. What that means is that if you have a concept that you want to put money into, and that concept represents returns short and long term, even if they start out being negative, you can have as much capital as you want. You just have to have a plan of what you're going to build with that money that's going to be worth something in the future so that people can get their money back in the form of returns, both dividends and other returns. So um, the fact that he's burning money is almost irrelevant. And I say this because um, in Europe, for example, Tesla almost outsold BMW and Mercedes in the high-end luxury vehicle segment. This is significant because um, both BMW and Mercedes are at least 100, if not 110 years old, and Tesla, in essence, is a 5-year-old company operating in that space. So if they can make this kind of progress in 5 years, what does it say about them having more time and infrastructure to do a better job? So thank you for your comments regarding large amounts of spending being done, but I also will remind you that there's a difference between spending and investing. So when you're asking a question like, why are they spending so much money? Another question I want to ask you is, how many supercharging stations for General Motors products are there in the United States or anywhere on the planet? The answer is none. And so, on the one hand, you can say Tesla is bad news. On the other hand, you could say there are tangible examples, both automobiles and infrastructure, that they've constructed with that cash that our customers are benefiting from. So at the end of the day, when I hear Mr. Lutz making his comments, I actually feel sorry for him, and I feel sorry for the American auto industry, because I believe, you know, instead of him comparing Tesla to what happened with Steve Jobs, I really think there should be a consideration between Microsoft and IBM. IBM controlled the computer market, and they were the dominant player and ignored a certain segment that Microsoft entered in. That segment ended up being one of the most important or valuable segments anywhere, eclipsing the value even of IBM. So what this shows is, just because you're the biggest player with long time experience in a field, it does not mean that you can't be out innovated and circumvented and even put out of business if you choose to ignore legitimate threats to your business. And I believe that countries like Norway, which is unusual because they generate their electric primarily by hydro, and therefore they have low cost electricity that they want their consumers to use, and then benefits like air quality, et cetera, or other nice backups to that. There's a reason why most of the global manufacturers are moving forward to make a statement about how they're going to handle consumer demand for these vehicles. So in my final analysis, Mr. Lutz, I believe suggesting that the only reason Tesla is successful is because Elon Musk has a cult following, I think is patently false. And I think it's insulting to not only Mr. Musk, to whom you should apologize for that one. I think it's insulting to all those customers that are buying and happily driving his vehicles. Because at the end of the day, General Motors, where you worked, is a company. Their job is to build and sell products that customers want to buy. If you don't do that, you go bankrupt. So there's the ultimate form of a check on what Mr. Musk is doing, which is whether or not customers buy, like, and continue to buy his products. And if you'll recall, it wasn't Tesla that went bankrupt, it was GM that went bankrupt and had to be saved by the government, because we have these very large organizations like a GM or even an IBM where they may know what the customer's wants are, but they're not interested in dealing with it in an efficient way. They're much more interested in delivering whatever they'd like to deliver that's profitable for them, but doesn't necessarily serve the customers, because the customers are choosing to go buy products from Mercedes or BMW or other manufacturers because our domestic producers have lost their minds. So I think that the comments made by Mr. Lutz are a sad commentary on the current state of the auto industry in the United States, and a huge show of lack of vision on the part of a once great executive at a critical time for everyone as the electric solution starts to be understood. Thank you for your time. Please like and have a good day.